How courageous are you? Yes, today we are going to talk about courage. And we are going to have a guest with us. This is Now Tell Us, and I'm your host, Anthony Morode. At Now Tell Us, we always have guests come and tell us stories. They come and inspire us. They come and give us an idea that we may not have, or remind us of something that we know, but we have forgotten. Now, please share this episode with all your friends. If you have a question, please ask. If you have a comment, we appreciate feedback. And I won't take one more minute. I'm just going to ask you to join me as we go and meet our guest today, who is known as Sandy Stream. Ready? Here we go. Hello, Sandy.
Hi, Anthony. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. And thank you for coming to Now Tell Us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yes, where are you?
I'm in Montreal in Canada. It's a beautiful city and beautiful day.
Oh wow, that's so wonderful. I have a friend from Canada. His name is Vasilis. Comes from Greece, where I am right now, and he tells me it's a beautiful place.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that I have kind of freaked about it is the snow when it gets cold.
Uh, yeah, some people adjust, some people never adjust to it. So it's different for everyone, but it could be difficult. There's some days that are very cold in the winter. Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
is that where you were born?
I was born actually Lebanese of Spanish origin, but I've been in Montreal most of my life.
Oh, and how has
Yeah.
it been? How when you were growing up, when you were going to school, what's life been for you?
Life was wonderful in many, many ways and challenging in many, many ways. I think most people live all kinds of difficulties of their own. So most people have probably joys and a lot of difficulties. And I'm definitely in that pack. One thing that I think I was very lucky to have is to learn many languages when I was young. And so I think that allows me just to have a bit more understanding and relatability with other people in general. But
Mm,
yeah, I mean, I lived, a life that was, regular in many ways, but also difficult in many ways. And I thought I had lived a lot of difficulties, but then I lived even more the past few years. With COVID, it got even harder.
oh,
And during that time, I decided to start to sit with myself a lot. And I
mm-hmm,
took a lot of notes. I call them my sanity notes. And then I turned them into a book, which I called The Courage Circle.
mm-hmm,
And then from there, now I facilitate circles
yeah,
in Montreal where we sit together and we meet and we discuss all kinds of deep topics, and we are honest and
mm-hmm,
we are respectful of each other during these conversations, which is a really rare thing from what I experience, for people to just sit together and be honest and open and respectful.
yeah. That's such a beautiful book there.
Oh,
It
thanks, Anthony.
has truth and dare.
Yeah.
Yes, and I titled our episode "Stand Up for Yourself." So it's in line with the the Courage Circle. We are gonna dive into it. But then you mentioned that you spoke several languages. How many languages do you speak? Whoa, you're counting
And yeah, like four plus two, somewhat, but
6 languages.
well, two half, kind of not fully
Two.
fluent. Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. And which are they? I'm curious. I love languages, and I'm curious. Which
Mm. Which ones I speak?
Yeah, the languages.
So I speak French,
Mm-hmm.
English, so, bonjour, parle français aussi.
Yeah.
So French, English, Arabic, some Hebrew, quite a bit of Spanish, a little bit of Russian, and a little bit of what else was I thinking about the other one? Okay, so French, English, some Hebrew, a lot of Spanish, a little bit of Russian, and a little bit of, I'm trying to remember which one. I mean, I do catch on other languages in small amounts in general,
When
but
you learn so many languages, you tend to forget some of them.
yeah.
I am with you there. Now, what
Yeah.
inspired you to get to learn so many languages?
Oh, I was just, put in schools where I was exposed to it. And I think in general, once you speak a bit of languages, it's just easier to pick up other languages.
Mm-hmm.
So, being born in Lebanon, I had Arabic and French as languages. And then here I was put in schools with English and Hebrew and other languages. And then I learned Spanish just with life. And so, the more languages you have, I think the more your brain it makes it easier to learn other ones. You
Yeah,
know,
I agree with
just
you.
because it knows how to figure out the grammar may be easier. I don't know. I'm not an expert in languages, but that's
The
my
only thing,
experience.
the only thing that I find a challenge is when I'm in a group of people who don't have a clue of another language that I put words into. I mean, I'm speaking one language and then I bring in words from another language, and the person is like, "What are you saying?"
Right.
So that's the challenge.
Hmm.
Now you put down notes and put it into a book to deal to do with on things to do with courage, and as we are saying about standing up for yourself. What were those times that you found yourself just with that need to stand up for yourself, to gain the courage? Maybe you could tell us which some of the situations. Maybe one.
It's basically every single moment now.
Mhm.
It's a constant thing, basically, for me right now. That to live a life where you're courageous, meaning that you are being yourself all the time, is
Mm,
not an easy thing to do in our world. So, when I talk about courage, it's not necessarily like jumping in front of a train or saving someone like that. It's really sometimes it might mean to, face your old pain. So it takes courage to face things instead of avoid or run away from old issues. So it could be
mhm,
that kind of courage. It could be the courage of setting boundaries with people in your life that do behaviors that are unacceptable for whatever reason to you or don't feel right. So it takes a ton of courage there because you might have some transformation to those relationships, or it might mean that you're going to have some times where you're alone, or after that. And then just in general, to being yourself in a world where there is such a constant people are constantly putting each other down, whether it's directly or subtly. Sometimes
mhm.
it's subtle tone of voice, but it's just a really constant thing that I feel is happening. And so to choose to remain and stand in your own feeling and in your own way, despite whatever might be happening around, is actually a courageous thing, I think, in general, to be able to do, to be honest and to express yourself. That's the kind of courage I'm talking about.
Okay, and we love stories, so we at some point you are going to share with us some stories. Maybe not your own if you're not so comfortable. Maybe of some people that you could be having the.
Sure. I mean, I witness it every week. So, in
Mm,
the Courage Circle, for example, let's say somebody came the other week that has social anxiety, right? And then they show up and they're attending a circle of people. For me, that is a huge step of courage, right? Or someone who's trying to look at their own mistakes or behaviors or whatever else, that takes a lot of courage as well. Or setting boundaries. There was a person who, it was the first time in their life. I think he's probably between 45 and 50, and it's the first time he had said no to his parents about something, anything they wanted him to come and do. I don't know what, and he said no, and that took a
mhm.
huge courage, I think, on on his end to do that. So
Okay.
those are the kind of stories where I'm kind of experiencing every week when we sit together and people are being honest and open.
Okay. And you talk about the comfort zone being the uncomfortable zone. Can you expound on that, please?
Yeah, well, the way I see how we live is that we're either kind of living in our head. So I see that like a calculator. So we're calculating different things and measuring and comparing. So that's the head. Or
Mm-hmm.
we live in the body, which is, your heart, your guts, your inner system, your emotions, where you feel everything. So feelings are not to be demonized. In my view, they're actually to be respected and listened to. And so when you live completely in the head instead of in the body, you're always calculating and measuring what's going to happen and what if this happens. And so anything that you have not calculated or you didn't experience it yet, right? Like you don't know what's going to happen because you didn't have it yet. What's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen if I go to France? It's scary because it's unknown, right? So it's
Yeah.
very hard to predict it because you're in
Mm-hmm.
the head. So that's uncomfortable. Anytime you're going to do something that's not known is going to be uncomfortable just
Mm-hmm.
because it's not known. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's comfortable to be in the situation. It's just uncomfortable because it's unknown. So sometimes our situations are actually just very uncomfortable and they're not good for us. But because it's unknown, we're scared to take this leap of, I guess it takes a bit of a leap of faith to jump into something you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but you feel it's the right way to go anyways. So it could be very uncomfortable to be in your comfort zone, because you might be in a situation that's not right for you. It's just not something you've maybe are ready to jump into something else yet, or the courage it takes and it does to do something we don't know what's going to happen. Like, for example, me going on your podcast today live in many streams. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to watch and listen and how it impacts and what it does, right? And so to live with that ability to go into the unknown when something feels right, right? So I feel right that I should do this today. And
Mm-hmm.
then I just let it go and see what happens without always predicting every single thing, right? So it's a different way of living, following what you feel you should do instead of always trying to predict everything, which is not possible.
Yeah, it's not possible to predict what is going to happen tomorrow.
Barely in 1 minute, we can't predict what's going to happen in 1 minute.
Yeah, as little as 1 minute, we don't know what could happen.
No,
As we didn't see the pandemic coming some three
we
years.
cannot. Yeah, we cannot control life.
Yeah.
We can just make choices ourselves.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You talk about self-love. Self-love.
Mm.
Tell tell us about that.
So I think a lot of people are raised thinking that loving yourself, taking care of yourself, is selfish. So that self-love is selfish, and my view of it is the opposite, actually. So loving yourself is almost a very basic thing and almost a responsibility to do, to take care of yourself,
Mhm.
and to be kind to yourself, because only once you become okay, feeling okay in yourself all the time, can you be a healthy player in the world, right? So if what happens on the inside happens on the outside, as many people say. And so for me, it's an absolute responsibility to figure out how to care for yourself emotionally and be kind to yourself if you're struggling, and get help if you need it, or whatever it is needed for you to take care of yourself so that you feel okay. And oftentimes people, they try to guilt and control this by telling you, well, you're selfish if you don't, let's say somebody wants you to come to this and that event or whatever. Well, you're selfish if you don't come. Well, no, it's not selfish actually if you are doing something that is necessary and healthy for yourself. It's, for me, it's the opposite. It's actually a responsibility to do so, so that you become healthy player in the world, in whatever way you live in the world, right? So if we're all stressed and upset and not managing and overwhelmed and not doing well, how are we going to impact the world compared to trying to get to a place where we feel okay, then certainly the impact will be different.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to stand up for yourself and love yourself. Self love. It's important. Yes, and you talk about going to an event and also about getting into groups. Is it a positive thing, a negative thing? What about that being in groups?
Um, well, we start our courage circle. For me, the most important part when we meet in this circle is at the beginning of it, everybody introduces themselves, and we introduce ourselves a bit like with a CV.
Mm,
So everyone talks about I tell everyone, yes, I'm a lawyer from this university, and someone else says I'm a journalist, someone says I'm a data analyst, everyone says their CV. And then what I invite people to do in this circle is to drop those CVs and drop the titles and drop your kids and drop your dogs and cats and drop everything for the moment in the circle so that we can just be together as human beings in the room and deal with each other like from a deeper place together.
mhm,
And in this energy of equality in the room, and I can assure you all different people come from all ages and genders and professions and levels of difficulty of life, and there's just no type of person that's attending. And it's absolutely possible to sit in the room and be honest, open, and equal in the room. And it really happens every single week, and it's wonderful. So for me, this idea of always trying to belong in a group, um, I'm not putting it down as something detrimental or not to do, but at the end of the day, if the being in a group serves, sometimes to help through experiences, right? Because you had similar experiences, let's say that's great. But if that means you're not in the other group or something, so if it leads to division and not realizing that this is a subcategory of the bigger category, which is humanity,
mhm,
then for me that's definitely not going to help our world. And this feeling of belonging, which I think a lot of people are looking for things to belong. I belong to this, and I belong to this
mhm,
family, community, country, whatever else they feel they belong to. I do think it's possible, and it is possible because I experience it. So it is possible to actually feel, not think, but feel that you belong in this world. And if you belong in this world because you're here, right? You actually belong. I mean, everybody belongs here because they're here,
yeah.
right? It's like saying, does a zebra belong? Well, of course, the zebra belongs. It's here. So it doesn't make sense to even ask the question almost. So if we arrive, at feeling ourselves completely in this world, that we are here and we belong here, we don't necessarily need to always think of attaching to groups or not groups because we feel we belong all the time, everywhere, because
Mm,
we're here, right? So
yeah.
it kind of makes sense.
Mm. We belong here.
Yes, we do.
We do
I mean,
belong here.
yeah.
And then there are people around the world, or groups or societies around the world, which are creating some disruption and, I mean, wars, hatred, and all those kind of things. How do you stand up for yourself, and how do you bring other people into your way of thinking to bring peace in the world?
Well, for me, I mean, one thing that's been also super important, like I said, for me, the book was many, many pieces. So it's not like one piece that gets, okay, I'm fine now. There's so many pieces. But another piece is learning what is accountability, meaning learning how you are responsible for what's happening, at least in part. There's a 1% responsibility for what happens, or in every situation, trying to find how you either took part of it or are playing a part of it, or what you can do, just always looking from that angle, right? So if we look at wars, for example, maybe we can realize that, maybe I'm participating in that war because I'm being nationalist also.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm perpetuating those ideas in some way, even if it's minor, we're still perpetuating a certain way. So for me, if people start to see how they're participating as opposed to trying to stop what others are doing, really realizing what you're doing in a situation, then you might act differently, and that is contagious, right? We impact other people by just the way that we are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I believe, and I don't know for sure, but it's my belief that ultimately to have peace in our world, then each person has to find their own peace, and that will, be contagious on others. And that would be, I think, the only way, in my opinion, because each person that feels peaceful inside will not be, violent or aggressive with others. It doesn't mean we don't set boundaries, and it doesn't mean that we accept behavior. So being peaceful does not mean, I let anyone do anything to me. That's not what peaceful means. It means I'm at peace with what I do all the time because I feel right with what I'm doing or what I'm saying. I'm feeling honest and right with what I'm doing and what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So how do you want to stop a war? So each person needs to stop their inside conflict first, deal with your inner conflict. And then, there's a lot of people who are living this way, and it will spread, I hope, just like, fear spreads. Well, courage spreads too.
Mm. Ah,
It's also contagious.
fear spreads and courage too. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's great. These circles that you facilitate, are they
Yeah.
just in person? Because I hear you talking when those people come into the room, or do you also have virtual version of it?
It's so funny you say that, Anthony, because just today I was thinking maybe I should start to do virtual events. So if I do, will you join? Because I didn't do them yet.
Okay, I'll be
You
looking.
really? Okay. All right. You'll be the first person in my virtual circle. No, I haven't done them online yet because being in person is really very special. People have
Yeah.
eye contact and there's a whole energy in the room. So I didn't know if it's something that we can feel in an online platform. But I was thinking today, at least, maybe it wouldn't be the same type of circle, but it certainly could be a conversation place, right? So the circles they're more intimate and they're very special, and there's usually only like 15 people each time, and there's no phones, and there's a whole respect there, which I don't think we can capture in an online environment, but discussions are possible. So maybe I'll do that
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
continue.
They are two totally different things, but always it's good to experiment with things, and you never know what lies ahead.
Okay, I'll go into my uncomfortable zone and
Yes,
try.
you go into your uncomfort zone. You've been on your comfort zone for too long.
Yes.
Yeah, we will be looking forward to it. And then you talk about the tools to help you release negative thoughts. And first and foremost, those negative thoughts, which, I mean, maybe you could have mentioned them along the line, but then you could sum them up and then tell us the tools to deal with them.
Well, it depends which kind of, I mean, thoughts is an interesting word. I don't know which ones people talk about. They bring them up in the group and we talk about which ones are happening, right? But a lot of times, other than curious thoughts, so curiosity is something else, but certain other type of thoughts, in my experience, often they're a way of avoiding feeling, right?
Mm,
So it's almost like an escape to go into thoughts instead of going into your actual feelings.
mm,
And people have a hard time going into their body and feeling their body because we've been kind of cut off from our bodies, and
yeah.
people are kind of living in the head instead. So sometimes thoughts are just a bit of an escape from truly feeling the truth. So the truth could be that you're feeling lonely or sad or in pain or angry. And so learning to go into the body, which is what, meditation is for, and yoga and Tai Chi and all the body things, anything that's body somatic, they call it shaking, dancing, everything else gets people more in touch with what's actually happening in the body. So that in of itself will, I don't want to say that's why break the thinking, but actually bring you into reality more as opposed to being in thoughts, which are not really in reality, right? The body is in reality more than thoughts are. So
Mhm.
learning to feel your emotions, learning to feel fully your pain or whatever else is happening, that can certainly help some of them. The other big thing that happens sometimes is that people have a lot of negative talk about themselves, right? And
Yeah.
that's often been, it comes from so many places, but the more we understand it and the more, sometimes, for example, let's say there's a real story of once I was walking to pick up my daughter and there was waiting to pick up my daughter from an activity. And I saw this girl and she was in a prom dress and she was sitting very hunched, her posture like this. And her mom was screaming at her, telling her, "You're such an idiot. You're such an idiot." I don't know why exactly. Maybe she forgot her shoes or who knows what. "You're an idiot." And I was just like really upset by hearing the level of, uh, demeaning language. And
Mm,
so I actually went next to the girl after the mom was like busy around. I walked by and I just said, "You're not an idiot." Like I whispered, "You're not an idiot." Like just so you
mhm.
know.
Yeah.
But imagine that girl, like, and so many people, right? You grow up with so many messages. You're only this, or you're only good if you achieve this title, or you're only good if that, and you're this, or like, so a lot of it gets internalized and you start to believe it because you think it's true because it's been said like so many times in your head.
Mm,
And so it takes, courage to say, no, I'm not going to challenge the truth of that thought. It's not actually true. It's just something I took from, maybe my parent was saying this all the time, or other people putting me down for whatever reason, and their tone and their voice and treating me like I'm somehow lower than them. It's a common problem. Um, so that's something each person has to learn to stand up to, almost stand up to that inner critic and say, no, it's not true. Because ultimately, again, if we go back to the body instead of the thinking stuff, the truth is in our heart space.
mm,
And I'm not saying this as a question of just being kind. It's literally physically in our heart space. And if we feel ourselves in the heart space, we can feel, our nature more, our essence, our goodness, whatever you want to call it.
mhm,
And so the more you feel yourself and you're like, no, I'm not, I'm just struggling. I'm not an idiot, or I'm just having a hard time, or no, I'm not stupid just because I didn't get that degree or this degree. I'm still a human being. So the more you feel yourself and you're kind to yourself and you feel your nature being good, um, then, those thoughts become, I hope for many people, less relevant in their existence, the more you come into the truth that's in the body.
mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. For those of you who may be joining us right now, we are with Sunday Stream talking about standing up for yourself. Sunday Stream has written a beautiful book known as The Courage Circle: How to Live in Truth and Dare. So stand up for yourself. And she runs circles, the courage circles, what she calls the courage circles. And we look forward to them reaching far and wide in the world. Apart from that challenge that we've given you on this show of starting an online platform, what else? What else is in the future? What else are you planning, or are you maybe already working on about the future?
Well, I mean, I feel very motivated by this work, because I witness every single day, people talking to others and to themselves in a way that's really unacceptable to me to witness.
Mm,
And so I keep trying to think, okay, where do I speak more? So doing these podcasts I've started doing just to at least open up this conversation,
mm,
and the circles I'm doing, and maybe I'll do the online, and I don't know, but I guess I feel my role at this point, because of my experience, is to start to speak and share what I've learned, probably like you, right? I mean, you've also written books about certain things you've learned and you want to share with others. And so I think I'm in the same motivation. But how that will come out next, I don't know yet, Anthony. But I'm definitely going to call you for the online ones so you can help me get going if it's okay if I do that.
that's okay. We can always hope in there and encourage others to be courageous.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and just in case someone listening or watching would be interested in reaching you, how do they do that?
So I have a website called thecouragecircle.com, and
Mhm.
that's where you could join the meetup, or if you come to Montreal to visit, you can come and join the meetup that we have every week at the yoga studio, or you can look about my book, or you can just contact me, say hello. It will be a pleasure.
Okay, so go to www.thecouragecircle.com.
Yep.
It's and yeah, that's about it for today. But before we go, we always like
Oh,
asking our guests to leave us with a few words that we can always remember. And this is your time, Sandy.
to always remember what
Mhm.
people should remember,
Yeah,
I would say remember to trust yourself. Trust yourself. Always go to the answers inside of you and not so much paying attention to what everybody else tells you to do.
that's beautiful. That's it. That's beautiful. And we've come to the end of the show.
Oh, thanks, Anthony. You did a great job.
Yes, and we appreciate you coming. You also did a very great job.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and keep on being courageous.
I'm trying. I'm trying, actually. I want peace in our world. So, one person at a time, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
to everyone out there, courageous. Keep on moving. Keep on standing up for yourself. Yeah,
Thank you, Anthony.
this has been Now Tell Us. I've been your host, Anthony Moirode. And together with our guest today, Sandy Stream, we are saying bye for now. Bye.
Bye.